Today, I'm going to tell you 5 steps to planting a bare root fruit tree and 1 mistake I made that you should avoid. Hey, guess what? Philip and Tamara at ASL Havard Homestead gave us some peach trees. Woohoo! Got them in the ground. I'm going to tell you all about how to do it. But first, I have something else I want to show you. Remember when I was a part of Liz Zorab's collaboration and I talked about the 3 books that I had in my homestead library that I thought you should have and the bonus one. And I looked and looked for that bonus book at home before I made the video, and I said, I guess I gave it back to Shari, my cousin, who lent it to me. Well, about 2 days ago, Chris walks in. Look what he plopped down on my lap. For some reason, this had made its way into the storm shelter. I don't know how it got there. I don't know who put it there. Look at all these tabs. You Can Farm by Joel Salatin. If you don't have this book, you need this book. If you haven't seen the video from the library homestead, I will put that link up above, and in the description I'll put a link to the whole playlist. So make sure you check that out. But let's get back to planting peach trees. So I have 5 steps for you in the way that I planted these peach trees. But before we get to what I did right, let me tell you about what I did wrong. Here's the mistake I made that you should not make. I got my trees a little early. Because of the situation, because they were being given to me, when I could get over to their place to get them, when they were there to help me get them out of the ground that they were in, all of that combined, I got them a little too early. You can see they're still green. They've still got leaves on them. They're not dormant yet. The ideal time to plant your trees is after they've gone dormant in fall or before they wake up in the spring. I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. That's what we got to do, right? Make the best and, you know, pray and just hope they make it. And I'm just going to baby these things, and hopefully the shock on them won't be too bad and they'll come back with a boom next spring. I will definitely keep you updated and let you know how it goes. Before I get started, I want to give a big shout out thank you to Tracy over at Farm Alarm. I remembered that they had a peach tree growing in their garden. So when I got these peach trees, I called him up and I'm like, eek, what do I need to do? And so he gave me some tips over the phone, and he sent me a couple resources, and I looked up some stuff on my own. So what I'm about to tell you today is not from my own knowledge, it's from the help of many sources. The first thing you're going to do when you're ready to plant them is soak them in water for about an hour to 2 hours. On the Stark Brothers info page, which I will link down below, it says be sure not to soak them longer than 24 hours. And of course, you're not going to soak the whole tree, you're going to soak the roots. I put mine in a bucket and let them soak. While they're soaking for that hour, I went out and I moved on to the second step. The second step is choosing your location. Where are you going to plant these trees? And there's several things that you should consider while you're doing so. One of the things you need to consider is when your tree is mature and you start harvesting the fruit, where do you want to have to go to get that fruit? How far are you willing to carry it back to your house? Chris and I, tell you a little secret, we're getting near 50. I'm just 2 years away from 50. These trees are not going to produce fruit until I'm in my 50s. And I want to be able to keep harvesting into my 60s and 70s as long as we live on this homestead, right? So for us, it was important that our fruit trees go in our zone 1, in our area right around our house. We're planting it at the edge of our yard. So that was one consideration. A second consideration that I had is where's my septic tank and my leach field? According to sources on the interwebs, you need to plant your tree as far away from your septic area and your leach fields as the tree's mature height. So a peach tree at its full height is about 25 feet. The first thing I did was walk right out my laundry room door. I know where our gray water pipe is, I know where our septic tank is, I know which way our leach field goes, which is to the south. And so from there I paced out about 25 feet, and then I went about 5 more feet just to be safe. Now the reason you do this is twofold. One, you don't want the roots getting into your septic system, destroying the tank, destroying the lines. 2, the way the septic tank works, the leach field part, is the water's gonna leach out, and any contaminations that are still in the water, E. coli, whatever else they might be, they're going to like be absorbed through the grasses and stuff. And we have a really good grassy pasture above ours. So the likelihood of any contaminant getting from the leach field onto the fruit that we harvest is not very likely at all. But if it were a really windy day and there was some bacteria sitting on top of a grassy blade, a blade of grass, if I can say that right, and the wind blew it, we don't want it ending up on our fruit. And our wind typically blows from north to south. So I am planting my fruit trees north of the leach field as well. And that 25 feet plus a few extra just makes it safer for everyone involved. Then, because I'm planting multiple trees, I had to figure out spacing. Now we plan on pruning our trees to keep them at a height of 10 to 12 feet or shorter. That being said, we are also planting in what's called a nap pattern. We own a movie called The Permaculture Orchard, and if you haven't seen that, check out the link below. It's fantastic information. Nap is your nitrogen fixer, apple pear, then a peach. So what you do is you alternate the plants, the trees, the fruits, in the way that they're planted, and the varieties, so that if you have this variety of peach at this end of your orchard, and it's affected by one certain pest or disease, then the other same variety of peach is somewhere down at the other end, and hopefully that pest or disease doesn't like your apples, doesn't like your pears, doesn't like your nitrogen fixers, and they kind of get sent the wrong direction. They're misdirected because your same variety of trees are all not planted in a row. With that in mind, I paced out about 25 feet between each of the peach trees I'm planting to make room for the apples or pears that I'll plant in between. Another consideration as far as distance was I also not only wanted to be 25 feet from our septic system, I wanted to be 25 feet from the foundation of my house. I wanted to be 25 feet from our well line and our electrical line. I don't want my grandkids, their kids, to ever have to worry about the roots of trees I planted making a big mess and an expensive repair for them. So now I have decided where I'm going to plant my trees. The next thing you gotta do, get out the shovel. You want your hole to be deep enough and wide enough so the whole root ball, the whole root system, fits in the hole with a little bit, a couple of inches between the graft line and the roots, between the graft line and the ground. So if you order a fruit tree that's been grafted, you want that graft point a couple of inches above the soil. If it's below the soil, then you're not going to get the properties of the grafted on tree. You're going to have the properties of the root tree, which I didn't realize until I read the Stark info page. So there's a tip for you. So I've dug all my holes. I put the dirt right beside it. Oh, here's a tip. If you don't have any extra soil going back in the hole you've dug with the dirt that you dug out of the hole, you can lay a tarp or something beside it, and that way you don't lose any dirt. For some reason it seems if you dig a post hole or you dig a hole for planting and you just put the dirt on the ground next to it, some of that dirt just like goes away. It gets lost in the grass or whatever happens to it. I don't know. It's like socks in the dryer. Where do they go? Probably the same place that extra dirt goes. But you can prevent that with a tarp. However, I'm going to amend the soil. That's tip number 4. 4 is going to be planting the tree. So if you have some soil amendments, if you have some compost, if you have some coconut fiber, if you have some plant food, if you've got some manure that's not too hot, you can mix that in with your soil that you dug out of the hole. In this wheelbarrow, I have peat moss, compost, green sand, blood meal, and perlite. Very similar to the potting mix that I made last year for my soil blocks. I'll put a link to that video up there and down below as well, so you can check it out if you want the exact recipe. This is not exact measures. This is just some of the things that I had left on hand. And when you plant the tree, you want to hold it perpendicular to the ground. You don't want to start your tree off leaning one way or the other. And hold it so that your roots are not smashed on the bottom of the hole. You don't want to set it in there and fill it in, because you want those roots to have room to keep growing and grow down and not be forced outward. So kind of hold it a little bit above the bottom of the hole or just at the bottom of the hole, and then start to put your soil in around it. Put your soil in, not too compacted, but firm enough so your tree is going to stand up nice and straight. After you've done that, there's only one thing left to do. Step number 5 is tamp down the soil around it and water the tree in good. You may want to stake the tree if you're in a particularly windy area, or if your tree looks like it might have some problems standing up on its own. It's not always necessary though. And then where I live, there's another consideration that Tracy mentioned, and that is deer. You don't want deer eating your tree. You don't want deer rubbing up against your tree, especially those bucks. So eventually, I'm not gonna do it today. I didn't have time, but eventually I'll probably put some kind of a wire cage around the tree with a T-post and some chicken wire or some fencing wire, just to keep animals off of it. We named our farm in faith. It's Plan B Orchard and Farm. We finally have the beginnings of an orchard. I really hope that you found this video helpful. If there's anything that I forgot to mention, make sure you add it in the comments. If it's something really noteworthy, I'll pin you to the top so that everyone else can see it. Thanks for watching so much. I'm always glad when you join me here at the homestead for my adventure. And you can, if I can do this, you can do this. We'll see you next time the rooster crows. These animals think it's dinner time. They're hungry all the time, just like kids. They want to be fed every day. Doesn't matter if I'm tired or not. What do you think, cows? You hungry? Pigs are hungry. They're camera shy. Hey, pig, pig, pig.